is a logical and sequential order of priorities to ensure viewer comprehension. Prioritize subjects in their proper order is a means of increasing retention. American Kenpo is divided into three major divisions: basics, self-defense, and freestyle or sparring. Each are further broken down into subdivisions. Technically speaking, basics are all physical moves or gestures executed with specific intent or purpose. Depending upon how these moves or gestures are employed, they can be defensive, offensive, or can accomplish both purposes simultaneously. When applied, they can be used to oppose, ride, borrow, or steal force, feint, sprain, dislocate, fracture, rupture, maim, rip, tear, claw, hook, poke, slice, rake, buckle, check, maneuver, trip, grab, lock, twist, pinch, butt, bite, throw, pull, along with numerous other accomplishments. Stated differently, basics are the fundamentals of Kenpo that aid in the development of the mind and body in its preparation for physical combat. Like other fields of learning, its roots stem from a logical and systematic foundation. Paralleling our written language, each move learned, whether defensive or offensive, can be considered an alphabet of motion. When alphabets of motion are combined, they form words of motion. Combinations of words of motion then form sentences of motion. Through my many years of experience, I have developed methods to aid you in your understanding of basics. As mentioned previously, comparable rudiments of our spoken language can be employed to boost our understanding of Kenpo. Learning moves in isolated steps is like learning words phonetically. For example, when we learn to pronounce the words cat, bat, and rat, we learn to say them phonetically as cat-at, bat-at, and rat. This method of pronouncing and enunciating our words taught us how to become articulate with our vocabulary. Likewise, motion learned in isolated steps teaches us to become articulate with our movements. It teaches us how to pronounce each move correctly, distinctly, and consistently. Only after thoroughly learning each move phonetically can we combine moves to formulate words of motion, sentences of motion, and even paragraphs of motion. Another method that can be employed is by the numbers. Teaching basics via phonetics is like teaching movements by the numbers. Utilizing this method accentuates correct hand or foot positions. It additionally teaches the value of torque, complete utilization of body weight, and all other factors necessary to complete and or maximize a move. The by the number method is not to be used in a realistic situation. Once your moves are learned phonetically and maximum power is experienced, numbered stages are eliminated and direct action takes precedent. Just as we do not speak to each other phonetically on a daily basis, likewise, phonetics of motion are also dropped during the course of higher learning and/or actual combat. Another method is the use of the clock principle. I use a number of visual aids, tangible as well as intangible, to make learning easier. One method is the use of the clock principle. This is a mental visual aid used to teach you the proper positioning of your feet and hands in the performance of your basics, forms, or they call it basics in motion, self-defense techniques, freestyle techniques, etc. For example, before starting a form, you'll be asked to picture yourself standing in the middle of a large clock that has been placed on the floor. The wall you face when first starting represents 12 o'clock. To your right, 3 o'clock. Directly behind of you, 6 o'clock. And to your left, 9 o'clock. As you move from your starting position, you are to mentally picture where the other numbers on the clock are, thus giving you a more precise sense of direction when performing. This principle also applies while learning self-defense techniques. 12 o'clock is the starting direction, regardless of where the attack stems from, flank, rear, or otherwise. To use another example, you may be facing 12 o'clock with your opponent attacking you from 3 o'clock. You may be taught to have your left foot step back to 9 o'clock as you face your opponent who's attacking from 3 o'clock. 3 viewpoints are involved here. The original direction in which you were facing, that's 12 o'clock, the angle from which your opponent attacked you, that was 3 o'clock, and the correct position of your foot, 9 o'clock, which is necessary to thwart the attack. In short, the clock principle is a directional reference used to aid you in selecting the proper direction when attacked, retaliating, or working your basics. To further enhance retention, I employ the mathematic and geometric symbol concepts. These are visual aids that can be used tangibly or intangibly using actual illustrations so that you can see it, or through verbalizing a mental picture instead. There are 3 mathematic and 3 geometric symbols that can enhance your learning. The 3 mathematic symbols are the minus sign, used in subtraction, the plus sign, used in addition, and the time sign, used in multiplication. The 3 geometric symbols are the circle, square, and triangle. All of these symbols will be used periodically throughout my videos to simplify your learning. Both mathematic and geometric symbol concepts and the clock principle can be used interchangeably, thus providing similar results and benefits. For example, visualize yourself standing again in the middle of a big clock. As you'll notice, a line drawn from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock will give you a minus sign. Superimpose it with a line from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock and it will create a plus sign. Draw a straight line from midpoint of 7 and 8 to midpoint of 1 and 2, then superimpose a straight line from midpoint of 10 and 11 to midpoint of 4 and 5, and you will have a times or multiplication sign. Connect all of the numbers with an arc, and you will have a circle. Draw 4 lines within the clock circumference, and you will develop a square. Divide the square in half from corner to corner, and you will form 2 triangles which could be condensed to 1. Another value that the clock, mathematic, and geometric concepts offer, other than aiding you in determining proper angles and directions, is the help it gives you in proportionately fitting the art to the specific measurements of your anatomy. Examples of proportionately fitting the art to the specific measurements of your anatomy will be demonstrated in this tape. A more sophisticated visual aid encompassing all of these methods, in addition to others, can be found in the universal pattern. This pattern is the most important catalyst contributing to my creative knowledge. Through it and by it, I have been able to extensively structure American Kenpo. It has opened up untold avenues that have given me answers beyond my comprehension. Because of it, I have learned to effortlessly convert embryonic moves to sophisticated moves, and to differentiate between the terms opposite and reverse, especially when applying them defensively as well as offensively. To get a trifle idea of how it can be applied, visualize yourself in the middle of a completed universal pattern. As you can observe, the directions, angles, and orbits that you can pursue are numerous. If you were to take 1/9 of the pattern, pull out some of the smaller patterns contained within, a number of benefits can be derived. There are overlapping circles using both arms, which can be used as an exercise or employed on a partner. The horizontal figure 8 using a single arm can also be used as an exercise or employed on a partner. Following a path of action from an extended outward block into an inward forearm block, use a pattern of a shaded square. As you can observe from the few samples shown, it would take a number of tapes to explain the universal pattern in its entirety. However, other applications can be viewed throughout my series of tapes. I am convinced that basics can be more thoroughly understood, be of greater value, and be more quickly learned if teaching methods encouraged analyzing and comparing past and present life experiences. When you can relate to something or some concept that you're already familiar with, basics become easier to learn. Your having experienced that concept in another field, related or not, easy substitution of your newly learned skill. The principles employed in a game of family billiards is a good example. The three major principles are: 1, proper alignment, to sink the ball of your choice into the pocket of your choice using the cue stick and ball. 2, to contemplate positioning the cue ball so that it will again be aligned to make the next shot easy. And 3, should your winning streak end, have the ability to place the cue ball in an awkward position to disallow your opponent from making a clear shot. To cite another example, let us examine the study of our alphabets. We have learned that alphabets can be written in uppercase or lowercase. Of interest, defensive and offensive movements are comparably applied. Let us examine a left punch to your head, followed by a right punch to your stomach. To defend yourself, let us use a right extended outward block to the left punch and a right inside downward elbow block to the right punch. You'll find that the blocks are much faster and safer than if we were to use our right fist to block the punches. The parallel here is that the high extended outward block is an uppercase movement, whereby the second block is a lowercase movement. As the examples demonstrated, when your new experiences and/or concepts parallel your old, you can be assured that you're getting closer to understanding the concepts of American Kenpo. Another unique teaching technique, which I often employ while teaching basics, is the rearrangement concept. Since many are only interested in obtaining sufficient knowledge of how to cope with average encounters, the rearrangement concept works well. The concept teaches you how 4 basic moves through the rearrangement process can produce 24 possible combinations without using the same combination twice. Knowledge of the rearrangement concept is important because there are no 2 situations exactly alike in a confrontation. Therefore, to have a set sequence of moves in mind when countering your opponent is unrealistic. The rearrangement concept makes it capable for you to blend with the action as it occurs, even though your knowledge of moves may be limited. It is the expansion of your limited knowledge that will give you the edge. There are 2 rearrangement concepts, the numerical and the alphabetical. The formula in calculating how the numerical rearrangement concept works using 4 moves are as follows. 1 times 2 equals 2. 2 times 3 equals 6. And 6 times 4 equals 24. If you wanted to determine the number of combinations that 5 moves would produce, then multiply 5 times 24, which will give you an answer of 120. 6 times 120 is equal to 720, etc. Please view the tape to see how this concept is applied. To best understand how the numerical rearrangement concept works, let us examine a self-defense technique containing 4 moves and assign each move a number from 1 to 4, assuming that the sequence of 4 moves flows without interruption. Let us assign number 1 to a right inward block executed on the inside of your opponent's right punch. Number 2 to a right chop executed to the right side of your opponent's neck. Number 3 to a right inward horizontal elbow strike to the left side of your opponent's jaw. And number 4 to a right back downward hammerfist strike to your opponent's groin. This sequential flow of movements can be extremely effective if your opponent responds to your action and makes no effort to intentionally or unintentionally obstruct your flow of 4 sequential movements. Let us assume that an opponent does make an effort to defend himself by placing his left hand in a guarding position. If this occurs, let us now see how we can still use the same 4 moves by exercising a simple sequential change employing the numerical rearrangement concept to make it work. Although the sequence of movements will be altered, an uninterrupted flow can still be obtained despite of your opponent's attempt to protect himself. The first move is the same with one exception. Your opponent's left hand is in a guarding position. From move number 1, you can shift into move number 4, then move number 3, and conclude with move number 2. Needless to say, other combinations could be used effectively. The alphabetical rearrangement concept follows the same format used in the formation of words. Letters picked from our alphabetical system, when properly arranged, can create words that are familiar to us. Like the numerical rearrangement concept, limited knowledge of the complete alphabetical system can still prove effective if the rearrangement concept is thoroughly understood. For instance, if you were to only learn the alphabet from A to G, you can still benefit from this limited knowledge, provided you learn that from these 7 letters of the alphabet, you can create words such as add, dab, ace, face, fed, fad, def, etc. When each of these 7 letters are used more than once, words such as deed, dad, feed, etc. can then be created. As you can observe, you can create a surprisingly large number of words, even though your knowledge of the alphabets may be limited. This and the succeeding videos in this series describe the 5 major categories of basics that comprise American Kenpo. They are stances, maneuvers, blocks, strikes, and specialized moves and methods. Of the first 4 major divisions, stances are literally postures of defense and offense. Maneuvers are methods of travel and or body positioning to enhance defense or offense. Blocks are methods of defense. And strikes are methods of offense. The 5th division identifies those moves and methods that cannot be categorized under the first 4 divisions and that unquestionably contain individual characteristics of their own. Stances form the foundation of all self-defense and freestyle moves. As we explore them, they are divided into the attention, horse, bow and arrow, kneel, cat, twist, one-leg stance, and specialized. Although the stances in American Kenpo may seem unnatural and contrary to conventional methods, they are, nevertheless, relevant against strikes delivered below as well as above the waistline. Stance considerations also encompass the possibility of multiple attacks. Many benefits can be derived from stances. They improve balance, give automatic protection to vulnerable areas, can be used to increase or decrease distance, aid in increasing one's power, assist in buckling, checking, or breaking an opponent's leg, allows for greater maneuverability, enhances an individual's peripheral vision, and much more. Stances can be learned in a variety of ways. The simplest procedure is to learn stationary stances. This method allows you to concentrate on upper body movements only. To include coordinated moves with the lower half of the body when first learning can be frustrating and discouraging. From stationary stances, you must then progress to stance changes while in place. This phase of training incorporates shifting your weight to 1. Increase range, thus making distance an ally, or to 2. Decrease existing range to help increase power, or crowd and jam your opponent. The feet in no way moves other than pivoting from one type of stance to another. The desired distance in either case is determined by the position of the upper body. As observed, in-place stance changes significantly reduces time and contributes to economy of motion. It also increases your ability to counter and attack. The 3rd method is learning stances while moving. When this occurs, they can also be classified as foot and body maneuvers, depending upon what you wish to accomplish, and as circumstances dictate. You can walk, cross over, cross back, slide, shuffle, hop, skip, jump, or leap with them. When combining these methods, stances can be lost in transition. since they are not intended to be held for any length of time, except to help the flow of motion. However, if you were to isolate each move, specific stances would be distinguishable. Through continuous practice, you will execute stance changes in motion with balance, poise, and power. Ultimately, you'll also learn to relax, maintain correct form, and move with effortless speed. Each stance must be tailored to the width, depth, and height of each individual. Ways of discovering the proper width, depth, and height of each stance, employing the mathematic and geometric symbol concept, will be described and demonstrated in this tape. Study these methods thoroughly. They will aid you in making each stance work more effectively for you. The tension stance is a disciplinary stance used to convey instructions. It is also an intro move prior to reacting to a command. Though primarily used for class instructions, it can, on rare occasions, be employed in combat. Like the military and other similar agencies, the feet are placed together, kept flat, with the back straight, head erect, and weight equally distributed between feet. Foot position, feet together, toe-toe, heel-heel. Weight distribution, 50-50. Reason and purpose, to convey instructional information, to teach discipline and respect, and help you to be more attentive. The horse stance is of two types, the training horse and the fighting horse. The training horse is the basic exercise position for learning blocks, punches, kicks, etc., and for warming up. The horse stance is also utilized as a meditating ritual when beginning and closing classes. Why the name? This stance is called the horse stance because it resembles the position used while riding a horse. The horse stance is frequently used in forms, self-defense techniques, and freestyle techniques as an important stance change. The distance between feet is critical, but it will vary according to you. Generally, slightly wider than your shoulder width. If the feet are too close together, the stance is weakened and poor balance. Likewise, if they are too far apart, stance changes and kicking becomes difficult and maneuverability hampered. The correct method to obtain a horse stance is to bend the knees slightly forward and force out to the sides as though they were being pushed apart. Holding the feet in place, avoid bending the knees too far forward or placing the feet too far apart. The fighting horse is almost identical to the training horse. The difference lies in placing your feet in the direction you are facing. Thus both feet are in line with your direction of focus. Analytical study of the horse stances. Keep your chin up. Relax your shoulders. Keep your head erect and body perpendicular to the ground. Force your knees out and away from you. Place greater stress on the outer portion of your calf muscles.
Your feet should be slightly wider than the width of your shoulders. Once the proper width has been determined, bend both of your knees naturally and comfortably, and you will automatically find your proper height. An interesting comparison. The knee can be compared with a shock absorber and should, therefore, be thought of as one. It should remain flexible between moves, remaining stable when and where necessary, and subject to instant directional change. The width, depth, and height of a stance must correspond with your dimensions. To give specific measurements is absurd. The training horse involves height and width only, whereas the dimensions of the fighting horse are restricted to height and depth. The following method can be used to correctly determine dimensions related to you. Place both feet together. Turn both heels out. Turn the toes of both feet out. And conclude by comfortably turning both heels out again. The method just described teaches you how to proportionally find your width. Once determining your width, squat comfortably and you will automatically obtain your proper height. In time, a step to your right or left will be sufficient to find the proper width of your training horse stance. The fighting horse basically has no width. However, to establish a proper depth of your fighting horse, you must first find the width of your training horse on your line of sight. After establishing this, have your head and eyes turn in the direction of your line of sight. Already having obtained the depth of your fighting horse, have both of your knees bend comfortably to establish your correct height. An added help. Please observe the following as a means of correcting the width of your horse stance. As your knees are forced out, they should bow out so that the sides of your calf muscles protrude slightly beyond the width of your ankles. Notice how this angle prevents a foot stomp originating from the top and side of your calf muscle from injuring your foot. Data summation of the training horse stance. Foot position. Feet should be slightly wider than the width of your shoulders. Toes in, heels out. Toe, toe, heel, heel. Weight distribution. 50-50. Weight is forced out to the outside edges of your feet. Reason and purpose. To teach stamina and patience. A training stance which allows one to concentrate on hand movements only without being distracted by the synchronization of foot maneuvers. Data summation of the fighting horse stance. Foot position, both feet are pigeon-toed with one foot ahead of as well as directly behind the other. It is like a training horse with the opponent to the flank. Head and eyes are focused to the flank. Weight distribution, 50-50. Knees are forced away from each other. Reason and purpose. Minimize target areas. Allow for a faster shuffle, side or back kick. There are three types of bow and arrow stances: the neutral bow, forward bow, and reverse bow. They all serve useful purposes and should be added to your reservoir of knowledge. Why the name bow and arrow? The bow and arrow stance was named because of the positioning of the stance. As you will notice in the graphic, when a Chinese bow is superimposed on a forward bow stance, they are almost identical. The forward or bent leg forms part of the bow, and the rear or stiff leg represents the arrow. Neutral bow and arrow stance. The neutral bow is a strong stance and presents a small target. Consequently, the neutral bow is a good stance for sparring or when engaged in actual combat. It is also an important stance when executing your forms and self-defense techniques. Notice how the neutral bow places the rear hip closer to the front than the fighting horse. This is a crucial point of difference. It allows faster use of the rear arm and leg. The feet are pointed more toward the front and are parallel with one another instead of pigeon-toed. The knees are still forced out and the weight rests equally on both feet. Although the feet are placed on either side of the center line, they point toward the front, facing the line of sight or your opponent. In comparison, although the fighting horse gives you a distinct defensive advantage, it limits your ability to retaliate effectively. While the neutral bow is not as protective, it is effective and much more versatile when employing defensive and offensive tactics. Analytical study of the neutral bow. Front view. Position your arms so that the right arm covers the upper region and the left arm the middle region. Your feet should be properly placed on either side of the line of sight. Left heel to the left of the line and the right toe to the right of the line. Have your head and eyes face the line of sight. Since the body is almost sideways, it presents a small target. Knees are forced out. The feet are pointed more toward the front and are parallel to each other. Side view. Keep your head erect. Keep your knees flexible. Distribute your weight equally on both feet. Keep the toe of your right foot to the right of your line of sight. Keep the heel of your left foot to the left of your line of sight. Position your arms so that one is high and the other low. Make sure this policy is adhered to when the arms are switched. Keep your back straight. Finding the proper dimensions. To find the proper width of a right neutral bow, have the heel of your left foot line up with the toe of your right foot. Depth can be found by dropping the knee of your left leg so that it is in line with the heel of your right foot. You should be on the ball of your left foot when you plant your knee. Once your width and depth are determined, have both knees bend naturally and the proper height will be arrived at automatically. Data summation of the neutral bow. Foot position, one foot ahead of the other, utilizing the toe-heel relationship to determine the proper depth. Both feet should run parallel to each other and at an angle of 45 degrees from your opponent. Weight distribution, 50-50. Reason and purpose. Gives you greater mobility, allowing you to retreat or advance with ease. The forward bow and arrow stance is primarily used in a stance change to extend the reach of the rear arm and increase its power. The most important contribution of the forward bow is as a stance change between neutral bows. The form and smoothness of this sequence will largely determine the effectiveness of the rear arm. Since retreating with a forward bow is difficult and exposure to vulnerable areas is more pronounced, the stance is intended to be transitory. A forward bow can be formed from your neutral bow by rotating your rear hip so that it is even with your forward hip. Your front leg does not change, but your rear leg becomes almost stiff as it pushes your rear hip forward. Your rear foot, while still flat, pivots on the ball as the heel is thrust back to a position where the toes point mostly forward. The ground is literally used as a launching pad to push, brace, and support your action. Your weight shifts more to your front leg, but the tendency to lean with your shoulders or stiffen your forward leg must be avoided. To check your form, observe yourself in a mirror. The movement is a rotation of your waist, while your back remains straight. Keep your shoulders square and parallel to the mirror, but do not raise your head nor move forward. Analytical study of the forward bow. Front view. Anchor your right elbow. The position of your front leg does not change. It is identical to your right neutral bow. Your head does not raise up, nor does it move forward. Have both of your arms in position to guard your vital areas. Keep your left foot and leg parallel to the line of sight. Top view. Make sure your hips and shoulders are parallel to each other. Focus your eyes straight ahead. Have the heel of your left foot anchored to the ground. Make sure your shoulders are square and parallel to the wall in front of you. Keep your right hand high. Position your left hand low. Make sure your forward or right knee is forced out. Have your right foot turned in. Do not lean forward or back with your shoulders. Keep your rear or left hip forward. Your left leg is kept rigid in this stance. Keep your left foot flat. The toes of your left foot should point forward. Finding the proper dimensions. Finding the proper dimensions for the forward bow are simple. First, find the dimensions of your right neutral bow. Once this has been determined, have the heel of your left foot thrust back by pivoting on the ball of that foot. Push your left hip forward as you stiffen your left leg so that both hips line up with each other. Upon completing this adjustment, all dimensions, width, depth, and height would be established automatically. Data summation of the forward bow. Foot position, one foot is ahead of the other, with your right foot at a 45-degree angle from your opponent and your left foot at a 90-degree angle from your opponent. Basically, a toe-heel, heel-knee relationship. Weight distribution, 60-40. 60% of your weight is on the right or forward leg, and 40% is on your left or rear leg. Reason and purpose. Gives you greater reach, enhances your power, and allows you a greater foundation with which to brace yourself. It is useful as a leg check, buckle, or break. Reverse bow and arrow stance. The reverse bow and arrow stance is essentially the same as a forward bow, with the head and shoulders turned to the back. As a stance change, the reverse bow serves three primary purposes. 1. It creates distance by pivoting away. 2. Rotation can increase the power of certain strikes. And 3. As the leg stiffens, it can buckle or sweep. Analytical study of the reverse bow, front view. Have your rear arm protect your upper region. Have your forward arm protect your lower region. Keep your rear knee bent. Keep your forward leg stiff. Top view. Make sure your shoulders are parallel to your line of sight. Keep your forward foot flat. The foot position is the same as a forward bow, with the exception that the head and eyes are turned into the opposite direction. Side view. Have your head and eyes turned toward the opposite direction after establishing a forward bow. Keep your forward arm low. Thrust your heel out and then anchor it to the ground. Keep your rear arm high. Keep both feet flat. Finding the proper dimensions. Again, find the proper dimensions for a neutral bow. However, form the neutral bow in the opposite direction of your intended line of sight. Immediately execute a forward bow while facing the same direction. Upon completion of the forward bow, have your head turn in the opposite direction, toward your intended line of sight. This final movement will automatically place you in a reverse bow with all dimensions, width, depth, and height, adjusted to your own specifications. Data summation of the reverse bow. Foot position. One foot is ahead of the other, with the forward foot at a 90-degree angle, heel out, from your opponent, and the rear foot at 45 degrees, heel out. This stance is the opposite or reverse of a forward bow with your head and eyes turned toward your opponent. Weight distribution, 40-60. 40% of your weight is on the forward leg and 60% on the rear leg. Reason and purpose. Allows one greater distance although remaining in place. Give greater power using opposing force. Is useful as a leg check, buckle, or break. Kneel stances. Kneel stances are of two types, wide and close. The major difference between the wide and close kneels is the space between the knees. The feet are basically the same distance apart in width as a neutral bow, but may vary in depth depending on circumstances. 3 facts explains its use. 1. The body drops in height, thereby giving power to your downward strikes, as it employs the principle of gravitational marriage, avoids an attack by going under it, or to help reach a low target. 2. As with most stance changes, there is usually a rotation of the hips and shoulders, which can boost the force of a horizontal strike. The combination of change in height plus the rotation will increase the effectiveness of a strike moving diagonally downward. 3. The rear knee drops down and may therefore act as a weapon, as a check or a pin, or as a push to buckle an opponent's leg. Although the wide kneel has greater stability, the fact remains that a close kneel can be extremely useful offensively as well as defensively. Both should not be overlooked, since they are definitely alphabets of motion that can help increase your vocabulary of motion. Wide kneel stance. The wide kneel stance is no more than a neutral bow with the rear knee dropped and forced out in the direction it was facing. There is no change in the positioning of the front leg or foot. However, the rear heel is raised off the ground to allow the knee to bend down further. Both knees are forced apart, hence the name wide kneel. The stance is quite low, the weight equally divided between the 2 feet, and the back is straight. Analytical study of the wide kneel. Front view. Keep your right arm low. Make sure your knees are forced apart. Have your weight equally distributed on both legs. Keep your eyes straight ahead. Keep your left arm high. Keep your forward foot positioned in the same positions as that of your left neutral bow. Top view. Keep your shoulders in line with your hips. Your rear leg is at a 30-degree angle to your line of sight. Keep your body parallel to the wall in front of you. Side view. Keep your back straight. Keep your buttocks tucked in. Make sure the heel of your right foot is off the ground. Keep the ball of your right foot on the ground. Keep your head erect. Place your hands and arms in guard position. Keep your left foot flat. Finding the proper dimensions. First, find the proper dimensions for a neutral bow. Now bend, drop, and force your rear knee out on a 30-degree angle from your upper body, which is vertical and erect. Make sure your rear knee is one handspan, your hand, from the ground. Although the width and depth of this stance is the same as a neutral bow, even though the rear heel is raised, a handspan measurement should aid you in obtaining the proper height for the stance. Data summation of the wide kneel. Foot position. Forward foot is at a 45-degree angle to your opponent. Rear foot at a 45-degree angle from your opponent, resting on the ground. Like a neutral bow, only your body drops in position. Weight distribution, 50-50. Rear knee is forced out. Reason and purpose. The drop in height gives added power, that is gravitational marriage, avoids an attack, gives you better access to low targets, can act as a pin or check, and gives greater stability. Close kneel stance. The close kneel stance is no more than a forward bow with the rear knee dropped 1 to 2 inches from the ground. The width remains the same, but the depth may fluctuate by sliding the rear foot forward on your line of sight. This, of course, would depend on the necessary adjustments needed at the time because of circumstance. Like the wide kneel, there is no change in the positioning of the front leg or foot, and the rear heel is also raised off the ground to allow the knee to bend freely. The forward knee is the only one forced out. The rear knee is kept in and close to the forward leg, hence the name, close kneel. The stance is exceedingly low. The weight equally divided between the 2 feet, and the back is straight. The close kneel is lower than the wide kneel, since the rear knee is kept closer to the ground. The weight, though equally distributed, is centered over the right knee. Analytical study of the close kneel. Front view. Keep your right arm low. Have your right knee brought straight down. Have your weight distributed equally on both legs. Keep your eyes straight ahead. Keep your left arm high. Force your left knee out. Your forward or left foot should be positioned identically to that of a left neutral bow. Top view. Your shoulders should be in line with your hips. Make sure your right leg is parallel to your line of sight. Line your body to that wall in front of you. Side view. Keep your back straight. Tuck your buttocks in. Raise your right heel off of the ground. Keep the ball of your right foot onto the ground. Keep your head erect. Make sure your arms and hands are in guard position. Keep your forward or left foot flat. Keep your right knee 1 to 2 inches off of the ground. Finding the proper dimensions. The first step is to find the proper dimensions for a forward bow. Once obtained, bend and drop your rear knee straight down toward the floor and about 1 to 2 inches from it. Make sure your rear knee does not touch the ground, although the width and depth of this stance is the same as a forward bow, even though the rear heel is raised. Having your rear knee 1 to 2 inches from the ground should aid you in obtaining the proper height for this stance. Data summation of the close kneel. Foot position. Forward foot is at a 45-degree angle to your opponent. Rear foot is at a 90-degree angle to your opponent, resting on the ball of the foot with the heel off of the ground. Rear foot may shuffle forward if an adjustment is needed, like the forward bow, only your body drops in position. Weight distribution, 50-50. Rear knee is dropped straight down so that it parallels the vertical angle of your head. Reason and purpose. The drop in height gives added power through gravitational marriage, avoids an attack, allows for better access to low targets, can act as a pin, check, or be used to fracture, and it also gives instant stability. The cat stance also consists of two types, 45-degree and 90-degree stances. In both of the cat stances, the forward leg rests lightly and is poised for a kick. Shifting the weight off of the front leg also provides a defense against a possible leg sweep. With approximately 90% of the body weight centered low and on the rear leg, it is this very strain on the rear leg that explains, in part, why these two types of cat stances are usually transitory. 45-degree cat. While executing the 45-degree cat stance, the rear foot is flat and points off to the side at a 45-degree angle with the knee bent, facing the same direction. Since the thighs in this stance are relatively close together, the 45-degree cat, when in transition, protects the groin. The ball of the front foot, while resting on the ground, is in line with the rear heel and placed far enough forward so the side view shows the angle of the forward leg to be a little less than vertical. Analytical study of the 45-degree cat. Front view. Keep your right arm low. Remain flat on your right foot. Keep 90% of your weight on your right foot. Your eyes and head should face straight ahead. Keep your left arm high. Keep your thighs relatively close together. Plant the ball of your left foot only. 10% of your weight should be on your left foot. Top view. Keep your body parallel to the wall in front of you. Your hips should be in line with your shoulders. Your right knee and foot should be on a 45-degree angle. Your left foot should be on a 90-degree angle. Side view. Keep your back straight. Keep your head erect. Have your buttocks tucked in and make sure that it sits low. Bend your right knee. Have your arms and hands in guard position. Bend your left knee. Make sure your left heel is raised off of the ground. Make sure that both of your feet are pointed away from you. Your left foot is on a 90-degree angle. Your right foot is on a 45-degree angle. Other helpful information. There are many variations of the cat stance. The primary difference generally involves the forward foot. Although very little weight is placed upon it, you may position the foot so that it rests on 1, the ball of the foot, 2, the flat of the foot, or 3, the heel of the foot. Regardless of what is used, they basically serve the same purpose. Special note, according to history, practitioners often place their bare feet on the ground in any one of the 3 variations demonstrated to feel the ground vibrations of approaching men or horses. Finding the proper dimensions. A helpful aid in finding the proper dimensions for a 45-degree cat is to again use the plus symbol to visually assist you. Position the rear foot so that the foot points out on a 45-degree angle. Place the heel of your forward foot against the heel of your rear foot. Now proceed to lift your forward foot and scratch a parallel and imaginary line where the big toe of that foot ends. Lift your forward foot and place the heel of that foot on the imaginary line that was just mentally drawn. Place 10% of your weight on the ball of your forward foot and lean back so that the remaining 90% of your weight rests on your rear leg. Data summation of the 45-degree cat. Foot position. The toes and foot of your forward leg are on a 90-degree angle to your opponent, with the rear foot at a 45-degree angle to your opponent. They are 45 degrees from each other. Weight distribution, 10-90. 10% of the weight is on the forward leg, 90% on the rear leg. Reason and purpose. Useful in transition. Poised for a kick. Better use against a frontal attack. useful defensively as well as offensively. Forward leg cannot be easily upset by a sweep. 90-degree cat. The rear foot is flat when forming the 90-degree cat stance. However, the difference is the direction of the toes and foot, which point off to the side at a 90-degree angle with the knee bent in the same direction. The thighs in this case are not close together as a 45-degree cat. This stance normally occurs from a surprise flank attack where there isn't enough time for the rear foot to shift into a 45-degree angle. With time being the primary factor, the forward foot is the only leg that is activated. When this occurs, the rear foot remains at 90-degree angle to the forward foot. There is no protection to the groin because of the legs being so wide apart. Therefore, other hand positions are necessary to compensate for this. The ball of the front foot is also in line with the rear heel and placed far enough forward so that the side view shows the shin a little less than vertical. Analytical study of the 90-degree cat stance. Front view. Keep your right arm low. Make sure that your thighs are apart rather than together. Keep your right foot flat on the ground. Keep your eyes and head focused straight ahead. Keep your left arm high. Plant the ball of your left foot. Place 90% of your weight on your right foot. Place 10% of your weight on your left foot. Top view. Your body should be parallel to the wall in front of you. Line your hips up with your shoulders. Make sure your right knee and foot on a 90-degree angle. Side view. Keep your back straight. Keep your head erect. Keep your buttocks tucked in and make sure it sits low. Make sure that both feet are pointed away from you. Place your arms and hands in guard position. Keep your left knee bent. Raise your left heel off of the ground. Your left foot is also on a 90-degree angle. Your right foot is on a 90-degree angle also. Finding the proper dimensions. Again, visualize an imaginary plus sign. This time, have your rear foot point out on a 90-degree angle. As with the 45-degree cat stance, the heel of your forward foot is placed against the heel of your rear foot. Lift your forward foot and draw an imaginary line with the big toe of that same foot. Lift your forward foot and place the heel of that foot on the imaginary line that was mentally drawn. Place 10% of your weight on the ball of your forward foot and lean back and over your rear leg so that the remaining 90% of your weight rests on that leg. Data summation of the 90-degree cat. Foot position. The toes and foot of your forward leg is at a 90-degree angle from your opponent with the rear foot parallel to your opponent, 90 degrees to your forward foot and leg. Both are 90 degrees from each other. Weight distribution, 10-90. 10% of the weight is on the forward leg, 90% on the rear leg. Reason and purpose. This stance is useful in transition when you're poised for a kick. It is best used against a flank attack. It is useful defensively as well as offensively. It would be difficult to upset your forward leg with a sweep. The twist stance is of two types, front and rear. Both have numerous applications. They are more commonly used as a means to advance or retreat without rotating the trunk of the body, or they may be used as a stance change to protect the groin, to break a leg, to check, or when rotating out of the stance they may be used to switch the forward and rear arms without shifting the feet. When assuming the stance, they can be used as a follow-through for a sweep or a kick, and on occasion they may be used as deceptive moves when freestyling. Twist is a short term for twisted horse, so called because the stance can be readily formed from a horse stance by twisting the waist and allowing the feet to pivot freely. A good twist sits quite low and maintains half weight on the ball of the rear foot. With practice, both twist stances can be held comfortably, since strength comes from resting one knee on the calf of the other. Front twist. An easy method to form a front twist stance, other than twisting into it from a horse stance, is to start from a left neutral bow and have the rear or right foot slide directly forward and past the front foot, while the toes of the right foot continue to point off to the side. As your weight moves forward, the heel of the stationary or left leg comes off the ground, permitting the knee of the same leg to bend forward until it rests on the calf of the right leg. The right foot lies flat on the floor. The feet are now basically at right angles, a little less than the width of a horse stance apart. Once positioned in the front twist, the shoulders or hips do not rotate, and the maneuver prior to establishing the front twist is called a right front crossover. Analytical study of the front twist. Front view. Keep your eyes and head focused forward. Keep your right arm low. Keep your right foot flat. Distribute your weight equally on both legs and feet. Keep your left arm high. Have your left knee rest on your right calf. Do not allow any space between your legs. Have your left foot rest on the ball of the foot only. Top view. Keep your hips in line with your shoulders. Your right foot should also be parallel to the wall in front of you. Keep your upper torso on a 45-degree angle to the wall in front of you. Side view. Keep your back straight. Keep your buttocks tucked in. Bend your left knee and have it rest on the center of your right calf. Make sure your left heel is off of the ground. Keep your head erect. Place your arms and hands in guard position. Keep your right knee bent. Keep your forward foot flat and have it point out and away from you. Finding the proper dimensions. First, find the proper dimensions for a left neutral bow. Now slide the rear or right foot directly forward and past the front or left foot, so that it is approximately half the distance or width of what a horse stance would be for you. This maneuver will aid you in obtaining the proper width and depth of your front twist stance. To obtain the proper height, rest your left knee on the calf of your right leg and drop your body weight so that it securely rests on your right calf. Do not allow any space between your legs. Data summation of the front twist. Foot position. Forward foot is parallel to the opponent and placed flat on the floor. Rear foot is on a 45-degree angle to your opponent and on the ball of that foot. Weight distribution, 50-50. 50% of the weight is on the forward leg, 50% on the rear leg. Reason and purpose. Used in transition when going either forward or backward. Allows for a fast drop in height. Used to stomp with. To conceal the rear leg prior to kicking with it. Protects the groin. Assists in breaking a leg as a check or used as a sweep. Rear twist. A rear twist stance can also be positioned from a left neutral bow by having your right foot slide directly to the back of and past and ahead of your left foot, while the toes of your right foot continue pointing in the same direction. As the weight moves forward, your left foot remains flat as your right foot is planted on the ball of the foot. Have your right knee rest on the calf of your left leg. When the rear twist is produced in this manner, the shoulders or hips, like the front twist, Do not rotate, and the maneuver prior to establishing the rear twist is called a right rear crossover. Analytical study of the rear twist. Front view. Guard with your left arm high and your right arm low. Keep your left foot flat. Balance your weight equally on both of your legs. Keep your eyes and head focused forward. Place your right knee on your left calf. Do not allow any space between your legs and thighs. Plant the ball of the foot only. Top view. Have your hips line up with your shoulders. Place your left foot on a 45-degree angle to the wall in front of you. Place your body on a 45-degree angle to the wall in front of you. Have your right foot face you in a vertical and upright position. Side view. Keep your back straight. Tuck your buttocks in and sit low. Bend your right knee. Keep your head erect. Place your arms and hands in guard position. Bend your left knee. Raise your right heel off of the ground. Have your right foot point in and toward you. Have your left foot point away from you. Finding the proper dimensions. Like the front twist, find the proper dimensions of a left neutral bow. This time, slide your right foot directly to the back of and past and ahead of your left foot, so that it again travels approximately half the distance or width of a horse stance as it pertains to you. This maneuver will aid you in obtaining the proper width and depth of your rear twist stance. From this position, drop your body weight so that your right knee rests securely on top of your left calf. Thus, your proper height is obtained. Data summation of the rear twist. Foot position. Forward foot or lead foot is at a 45-degree angle from your opponent, resting on the ball of that foot. Your rear foot, which is originally the forward foot, is parallel to your opponent and rests flat. Weight distribution, 50-50. 50% of weight is on the forward leg and 50% on the rear leg. Reason and purpose. Used in transition when going either forward or backward, allowing for a fast drop in height, used to stop with, to break or check, and to protect the groin. The one-leg stance can be formed several ways. The name is self-explanatory. However, what constitutes a right or left one-leg stance does differ from the other stances learned in this tape. In this case, it is the supporting leg, the leg bearing the body weight, that determines a right or left one-leg stance. The airborne leg, the leg which is raised, is not used as a determining factor because of the numerous positions, directions, and heights it can be placed in. The one-leg stance is commonly used while jumping from side to side to avoid a frontal or rear attack. It may arise out of a cat stance to avoid a leg sweep. Generally, it is a very useful transitory stance while shifting from one stance to another. On occasion, it may be used deceptively while freestyling. The hand positions can also vary depending upon the positions used when forming a one-leg stance. Important note: a one-leg stance can be formed by raising the rear leg instead of the forward leg. It does not have to be the forward leg. Analytical study of the one-leg stance. Front view. Keep your right arm low. Keep your eyes and head focused straight ahead. Keep your left arm high. Lift your left leg up and in the air. Keep your right foot flat. 100% of your weight is on your right foot. Top view. Keep your hips in line with your shoulders. Keep your body parallel to the wall in front of you. Make sure your right knee and foot are on a 45-degree angle. Position your left knee on a 90-degree angle. Side view. Keep your back straight. Keep your head erect. Make sure your arms and hands are in guard position. Keep your buttocks tucked in and have it sit low. Bend your right knee. Bend your left knee and raise it to waist level. Make sure both feet are pointed away from you. Even with your left foot in the air, it should still face on a 90-degree angle. Position your right foot on a 45-degree angle. Finding the proper dimensions. Two of the dimensions, width and depth, are missing. Height is really your only concern in executing a one-leg stance. In executing a one-leg stance, bend your supporting leg to a comfortable and balanced position and maintain it. Make sure that your entire weight is centered on your supporting leg. You can execute a one-leg stance from any of the stances mentioned in this videotape. Cock your suspended leg to any height or position. Turn your head in any direction and place your hands and arms in any position. You would still be positioned in a one-leg stance. That is summation of the one-leg stance. Foot position. Your leg is suspended and your knee points to the left or right. The rear leg is bent with the foot at a 45-degree angle from a left neutral ball to your opponent. The rear leg can be raised instead of the forward leg if desired. Weight distribution. 100% on your supporting leg. Reason and purpose. Use more to protect the groin area. Utilizes economy of motion when executing a side kick with the leg that is suspended in the air. The two specialized stances are the concave and the diamond stances. Because they are transitory stances used to heighten as well as support the effects of a technique, they will be demonstrated and not explained as heretofore presented. The technique leap of death demonstrates both the diamond and concave stances. The technique also employs a number of the stances previously discussed and how the clock principle satisfactorily pinpoints direction. Please note the employment of the left transitory neutral bow, left reverse bow, left forward bow, left close kneel, and right close kneel stances. Leap of death is for a front right step through straight punch. The technique requires that you step back with your right foot towards 6 o'clock into a left transitional neutral bow facing 12 o'clock. As you step back with your right foot, execute a right outward parry to the outside of your opponent's right punch. Continue to ride the force of your opponent's punch by pivoting in the left reverse bow. Simultaneous with your pivot, have your right hand grab your opponent's right wrist while delivering a left inward horizontal heel palm strike under and to the outside of your opponent's right elbow. The explosive flow of your action should guide your opponent diagonally and down past your right hip. Instantly reverse the flow of your action as you pivot counterclockwise into a left forward bow facing 12 o'clock. As you pivot, maintain control of the opponent's right wrist with your right hand while simultaneously delivering a left outward back knuckle strike to your opponent's right lower rib cage. Again, reverse the flow of your action as you pivot clockwise into a left reverse bow facing 12 o'clock. As you pivot, maintain control of the opponent's right wrist while simultaneously delivering a left inward heel palm strike to the back of his right shoulder. The explosive flow of your action should jerk your opponent diagonally and down to the ground. Leap into the air toward your opponent with both feet cocked under you and with both of your hands cocked to the sides of your chest, palm up in begging fashion, preparatory to executing your specialized diamond stance. Land in a diamond stance on your opponent so that the heels of both feet strike to your opponent's kidneys, right heel to right kidney, left heel to left kidney. Immediately slide both heels off your opponent's kidneys. Using quarter beat timing, take advantage of your opponent's body reaction by executing simultaneous heel palm strikes to the back of your opponent's mastoids. Right heel palm to right mastoid, left heel palm to left mastoid. This should stun your opponent as well as drive his face into the ground. From the reaction of your opponent's face hitting the ground and bouncing back up, slip both of your hands along your opponent's face and under his chin. Immediately switch into a concave stance as you pull up and toward you with both of your hands, using your knees to brace down and against your opponent's shoulder blades. The intention here is to stretch your opponent's neck and throat to their limits. Without disengaging from your opponent, twist his head and neck clockwise to snap his neck. This is accomplished by pulling up and against your opponent's chin with your right hand and pushing down on the back of your opponent's head with your left hand. With your right hand now cocked to your right ear, palm out, and your left hand pushing your opponent's head down, immediately follow up by pivoting to a left close kneel stance as you deliver a right inward handsod to the bridge of your opponent's nose. This should break his nose. Switch into a right close kneel stance as you drop your left knee onto your opponent's upper spine. With this action, simultaneously execute a left hand push to the back of your opponent's head to again force his face to the ground. Using your opponent's body as a springboard, bounce up, leap, and turn your body counterclockwise in midair. Using the synchronization of your rotational force and marriage of gravity, land with your left foot to the right of your opponent's body as you deliver a right downward looping roundhouse kick to your opponent's head. Be sure to bend your left knee deeply when executing your right roundhouse kick. From the point of contact of your right kick, execute a right front crossover and cover out twice toward 1030. The designation of a left or right stance is determined by the lead or forward leg as well as the direction you are facing in the case of both head and eyes at the time each stance is established. The only exception rests with the one-leg stance. Because the suspended leg can be found in a number of positions and directions, it is the supporting leg that determines whether the one-leg stance is left or right.
I hope you have enjoyed Sophisticated Basics 1. Review the many methods of study discussed, as well as the stances illustrated, by rewinding the tape as often as required. This can help your training immensely and assist you in achieving your goals more expeditiously. Grasp the rearrangement concepts, along with the many methods discussed, and you will establish good, solid basics. To do so will aid you in converting embryonic movements to sophisticated movements. Obviously, there are many approaches to teaching basics. Whatever the approach, I admonish you to follow a progressive lesson plan geared to individual ability. Determine your strong points as well as those that come naturally. Then proceed to cultivate these positive attributes first. An important reminder: the information contained in this and future tapes covers a vast array of experiences. It is for the novice as well as the advanced practitioners. Therefore, you are cautioned to practice only those exercises paralleling your ability and skill.
This tape stresses refined methods of maneuvering that can be employed during combat. It is the second of Ed Parker's series on sophisticated basics, originating from his videos on advanced concepts and principles of Kenpo. As you acquaint yourself with his thoughts, ideas, theories, concepts, principles, and innovative creations, Ed Parker encourages you to pursue logic as he has to obtain answers. Once you have pursued as well as adopted the logical and consistent approach upon which Ed Parker's American Kenpo is based, you will agree that Ed Parker's system is not only an art, but a science created by a modern-day innovator. Let us now hear from the Senior Grandmaster himself, Ed Parker.
The second topic on basics is maneuvers. When combined with stances learned in Sophisticated Basics number 1, it teaches you instant transitional response. As both become spontaneous, rapid angle changes, as well as the instantaneous altering of defensive and offensive strategies are forthwith. Maneuvers are further divided into foot maneuvers, which involves step-throughs, shuffles, crossovers, twists, jumps, dives, feints, specialized, and body maneuvers, which involves turning, riding, rolling, slipping, bobbing, weaving, falling, feints, and specialized. Maneuvers are unique strategic methods used to evade and/or attack an opponent. It involves traveling techniques using an array of footwork patterns in addition to changing stances, body positions, and postures. Employing these methods can aid you in creating or decreasing distance to your best advantage. Can be used preceding an attack, used simultaneous with an attack, or used after an attack. This is done by stepping, shuffling, crossing, twisting, hopping, jumping, and leaping with your legs, or by feinting, turning, riding, rolling, slipping, bobbing, and weaving using the upper torso and other necessary combinations. The directions and combinations of your maneuvers are many. Nevertheless, circumstances can place limitations upon them. Movements incorporating the legs are classified as foot maneuvers or methods employed to move about in any direction utilizing stances. These methods are further broken down into subdivisions and types. Step-throughs are steps used while advancing, retreating, or moving to the left or right sides. Thus, we have the forward step-through, the reverse step-through, and the side step-through, left and right. Shuffles are combinations of drags and steps, or vice versa. They consist of 4 basic types: drag step, step drag, push drag, and pull drag. Like the step-throughs, the traveling direction of a shuffle can be forward, reverse, or to the side. Crossovers are combinations of over-exaggerated drags and normal steps. There is a great similarity between a front and a rear crossover and a front and rear twist stance. The key difference is continued motion. A front and rear crossover incorporates an additional step. No sooner do you go into a front or rear crossover than you step out with an additional step to complete the maneuver. A front or rear twist stance remains motionless for a period of time. It is exactly the same as a front and rear crossover, minus the additional step that completes the maneuver. Front and rear crossovers can be done while advancing or retreating. Hopping
leaping, jumping, and diving are other maneuvers that can be used. These methods will be extensively elaborated upon in my self-defense video series. After you have thoroughly learned these foot maneuvers, they can aid you in developing rapid angle changes, increasing or decreasing distance, adding greater power to your strikes or blows, and helping to nullify your opponent's actions. Their importance cannot be overemphasized and must be incorporated to assure maximum efficiency. In taking a closer look at foot maneuvers, we find them to be intricate, adding sophistication to the art. That is, they can produce dual or multiple results. Consider the following example. If a step-through maneuver brought your foot alongside of your opponent's leg, and then you proceed to buckle his leg, this action would have required two movements to accomplish a single effect, and thus be considered embryonic. In contrast, if your step-through maneuver, following the correct angle, went directly through the opponent's leg to buckle him in a single move, it would have given you the desired distance as well as caused your opponent's leg to buckle. It would have been a single move with a dual effect and, therefore, considered sophisticated. A more detailed study of foot maneuvers proves even more interesting. Other than the buckle, foot maneuvers, coupled with stance changes, can be used to check, pin, lock, spread, sprain, or break various parts of an opponent's anatomy. Combinations of these methods can also be employed depending upon circumstances. For example, you can use a step-through reverse foot maneuver, pivot into a right wide kneel stance to buckle your opponent's leg, make an in-place stance change while dropping into a left close kneel stance to break your opponent's ankle. When foot maneuver combinations are properly synchronized with combinations using the limbs of the upper torso, proficiency is enhanced and victory increasingly assured. Movements incorporating the upper torso of the body are classified as body maneuvers. It can also be defined as methods employed to move in any direction using the upper torso. Like foot maneuvers, body maneuvers can be subdivided into types of moves. However, it must be emphasized that many of the body maneuvers are coordinated with foot maneuvers. Therefore, to completely isolate one from the other would be unrealistic. Further, although the upper torso may be utilized more often than the legs, nevertheless, can incorporate these same methods on a limited scale or use them in a slightly altered pattern. Turning is one of the methods used to maneuver the body to avoid, ride, or slip past a punch, kick, or strike. In addition to using it as a defense, it can also be used to increase the effectiveness of an offense. Using sophistication, turning can be defensive and offensive simultaneously, where body as well as foot maneuvers may be employed. Riding a punch, kick, or strike primarily refers to having your head or body go with an attack. In the process of doing so, distance is achieved, or at least attempted, however slight it might be. To accomplish this method, retreating is often used. When one retreats simultaneously while turning, it is labeled rolling. Rolling is a combination of both riding and turning. Slipping is a sophisticated method of avoiding a punch, kick, or strike. It does not need to involve turning or rolling to be effective, although it may employ these maneuvers if the situation warrants it. Slipping is simply a method of avoiding a punch, kick, or strike with or without the use of a defensive block. The head or body avoids the attack by fractions of an inch as it slips and advances toward your opponent to counterattack, crowd, jam, check, or frustrate him. Bobbing is a vertical or diagonal method of motion used to avoid, duck, or slip past a punch, kick, or strike. It is the up and down or down and up motion used to avoid or initiate an attack. It can be accomplished by bending at the waist or knees, such as a wide or close kneel stance, or by using a combination of both. Ducking is the downward motion of bobbing. It is practically a straight drop. Weaving involves a horizontal or diagonal method of motion, which is used to avoid or slip past a punch, kick, or strike. It is the left to right, right to left, or side to side motion used to avoid or initiate an attack. The waist and knees can be used independently or in combination with each other, as the feet remain basically in place. A combination of bobbing and weaving increases your versatility, maneuverability, and effectiveness when you're being evasive or when you're counterattacking. One proficient in bobbing and weaving can be extremely elusive. Feinting is the use of deceptive gestures or maneuvers to lure or cause your opponent to react. It is a setup move employed as part of your intended plan of action. It is used to mislead and deceive your opponent so that your counter or follow-up action can then be effectively executed, delayed, or eliminated entirely. Specific parts of the body, such as the head, shoulders, arms, or even the legs, are used for feinting. A feint can be a simple gesture, a pronounced action, or it can be a number of gestures used consecutively in a variety of time periods to create the desired results. Feints against the unskilled are not as necessary as against the skilled. However, they can cause a dramatic reaction to your plan of attack. Organizational chart on foot maneuvers. Foot maneuvers. There are step-throughs, forward, reverse, side, sliding, splitting, switching, covering. There's shuffles, such as step drag, drag step, push drag, pull drag. In the crossovers, you have front and rear. In twists, you have in-place twists and traveling twists. In terms of jumps, you have hopping, leaping, switching, covering, flying, dives, head and shoulder, shoulder, back, head, and chest. In the specialized, you have flipping, spinning, and twirling. Let us now review foot maneuvers in more detail and capture the finer points missed the first time around. Foot maneuvers. Step-throughs are steps used to maneuver forward, back, or reverse, to the side, and other directional angles while evading or attacking an opponent. They are generally walking steps, steps that leave the ground before being replanted. However, they can also employ such methods as sliding, splitting, switching, and covering in completing the step. These steps can be full, half, or quarter steps, depending upon the desired effect. The following illustrations and descriptions should help clarify each of the methods used for step-throughs. From an attention stance, step forward with your left foot into a left neutral bow stance. Then step forward with your right foot into a right neutral bow. From an attention stance, step back with your left foot into a right neutral bow stance. Then step back with your right foot into a left neutral bow stance. Another interesting comparison. As you execute your foot maneuvers, think of your head as a gyro on a ship's compass. A gyro, if you're acquainted with one, remains unaffected by the pitching and rolling movements of a ship. No matter how rough the water or what position the ship may be forced into, the gyro remains parallel with the horizon. Therefore, while executing your foot maneuvers, change your body positions, but not your head. Allow your head and eyes to focus in the direction that you're moving to or from. Have your head act as a gyro on a ship's compass. Although this policy is generally practiced, there are, nevertheless, always exceptions to the rule. Sliding is a method of executing a step using one foot at a time. In this maneuver, the foot is kept in constant contact with the ground. Like other methods, sliding steps can move forward, back, or to the side while starting or finishing the desired maneuver. While sliding, the head is kept level so that bobbing is minimized. Every action becomes direct, thus economically executed. Balance and stability are also enhanced along with power and impact. Splitting can be best described as two slides simultaneously executed, whereby both feet simultaneously slide apart from each other. Its primary purpose is to cause an instant drop in height to avoid an attack, execute an attack, or while using combinations of both. Switching entails a combination of steps or a jump to change stance positions while remaining in the same spot and facing in the same direction. While there are a number of ways of switching, only 3 methods will be shown. 2 employ step-throughs and the other a jump. Switching is often used to better position oneself, to protect vital target areas, to enhance an attack while employing a linear path or an angular path, to be deceptive, and to enhance one's strategy. Switching utilizing step-throughs are of 2 varieties: back to front, sometimes referred to as rear to front, and front to back, often referred to as front to rear. Back to front requires that your lead or forward foot moves back and in line with your rear foot, as you immediately shift your rear foot forward so that it ends up in line with where your forward foot originated. Front to back requires that your rear foot moves forward and in line with your lead or forward foot as you immediately step back with your forward foot so that it is positioned in line with where your rear foot was. The jumping switch, which is the 3rd variation, will be described under the heading of jumps. Covering is a step-through method used to turn and face in the opposite direction. The lead foot steps to the opposite side, then turns in the opposite direction. In the process of completing this motion, your body actually retreats from the initial attack rather than move toward it, a highly recommended built-in safety factor. Unable to see what is back of you nor the type of attack being used, it would be foolish to move toward an opponent's action. Such a move would only speed up your opponent's action as well as add to his force. To benefit from this maneuver, move your right foot to your left while still facing the same direction. Turn counterclockwise and face the opposite direction. With your left foot now the lead leg, move it to your right while still facing the same direction. Turn clockwise and face the opposite direction. Repeat this several times to get the feel and balance of the maneuver. Shuffles are related methods of dragging or scraping the feet combined with steps, pushes, or pulls to shift from one location to another. There are 4 shuffle combinations using the feet and leg muscles to shift the body forward, back, or to the side with either foot in the lead. The left foot could be ahead of the right foot or the reverse when employing any of the shuffles. A step drag shuffle can be executed by 1. Getting in a right neutral bow and 2, stepping forward with your right foot into a deeper right neutral bow. 3, then dragging your left foot forward so that the same distance is maintained between your feet as in step 1. Now in step 4, from your right neutral bow, step back with your left foot into a deeper right neutral bow. And then drag your right foot back so that the same distance is maintained between your feet as in step 4. As you will note from the example shown, you can execute a forward step drag shuffle or a reverse step drag shuffle with your right foot as the lead foot. The same moves can apply with your left foot as the lead foot. A drag step shuffle is the reverse order of a step drag shuffle and can easily be done by 1, forming a right neutral bow, then 2, having your left foot drag forward so that the depth of your stance is decreased. 3, then completing the move by having your right foot step forward so that the same depth is maintained as in step 1. The following best exhibits how to execute a reverse drag step shuffle. 1, form a right neutral bow stance. Then 2, have your right foot drag back so that the depth of your stance is decreased. 3, complete the move by having your left foot step back so that the same depth is maintained as step 1. Both forward and reverse drag step shuffles can be done with your left foot in the lead. In my estimation, the most important shuffle is the push drag shuffle. It can be executed faster than any of the other shuffles, triggering instant body momentum while creating immediate backup mass and force. The result? Greater contact impact. Although speed can be kept constant while you're moving forward or back, the push drag shuffle is at maximum effectiveness moving forward. However, under special circumstances where your opponent is well within the range of your natural weapons, maximum force can be obtained while retreating with the push drag shuffle. The following best demonstrates how to execute a push drag shuffle. The push drag shuffle requires 1, that you lift your forward leg slightly off the ground, and 2, push forward with the rear supporting leg while simultaneously dragging it after you so that the original distance before commencing the push drag shuffle reoccurs again. The push drag in reverse requires 1, that you raise the rear leg, and 2, push back with the forward leg while simultaneously dragging it after you so that the original distance before commencing the maneuver reoccurs again. The pull drag shuffle is primarily used by the more adept to slip a kick in on an opponent as the supporting leg, the leg bearing your weight, is literally pulled into action in order to allow your body to lunge forward. This particular shuffle is often confused with a step drag shuffle and requires practice to perfect. With practice and experience, the difference between a pull drag and step drag shuffle will become obvious. The following best describes how to execute a pull drag shuffle. From a right neutral bow, slightly lift your right foot so that it is barely off the ground. Now pull ahead with your left leg as it drags forward. In step 4, plant your right foot into a right neutral bow so that the distance between your feet is the same as when commencing this maneuver. Crossovers are combinations of over-exaggerated drags and normal steps that allow you to create and adjust distances. Because of the length of distance that this maneuver can cover, it is considered a long-range foot maneuver. Used as an offensive maneuver, it allows for faster and deeper penetration. Crossovers fall into 2 categories. Front crossovers, where one leg crosses over and in front of the other before stepping forward, and rear crossovers, where one leg crosses behind and in back of the other leg before stepping backward. Both methods can be done while advancing or retreating. Let us now learn to execute a front crossover while going forward. 1. From a right neutral bow, have your left foot step in front of as well as forward of your right leg. Flatly plant your left foot while raising the heel of your right foot. At this position, make every effort to distribute your weight evenly. 2. Immediately step forward with your right foot and again resume a right neutral bow stance. When proceeding in reverse with the front crossover from a right neutral bow stance, 1. Have your right foot step back but in front of your left foot. Flatly plant your right foot while raising the heel of your left foot. Your body weight is again evenly distributed at this point. 2. Continue your foot maneuver by stepping back with your left foot and position yourself into a right neutral bow stance. To execute a rear crossover going forward, 1. Have your left foot step in the back of as well as forward of your right leg. During the maneuver, have your left foot plant on the ball of the foot with the heel raised. Have your right foot remain flatly planted. Your weight distribution is again evenly dispersed. 2. Immediately step forward with your right foot into a right neutral bow stance. When proceeding in reverse with the rear crossover from a right neutral bow, 1. Have your right foot step to the back of as well as behind of your left foot. During the maneuver, have your right foot plant on the ball of the foot with the heel raised. In this case, it is the left foot that remains flatly planted with your body weight again evenly distributed. Continue your foot maneuver by stepping back with your left foot and position yourself into a right neutral bow stance. Let us now examine the change of direction that occurs when executing a front or rear crossover. When advancing with a front crossover, your direction of travel will be in a straight line. When retreating with the front crossover, your direction will be on a diagonal line. The reason for this is because of the altered center line. Of interest is the flip side that occurs when advancing or retreating with a rear crossover. While advancing with a rear crossover, travel takes a diagonal route. When retreating, it takes a straight route. Having knowledge of direction of travel when advancing or retreating with either front or rear crossover can be of great importance during combat. Instant angle changes could be activated if required. The following illustrations should prove its validity. Historical interest. While crossover maneuvers work well on flat terrain, history records that it was originally developed to effectively travel up and down stairs. With practice, you will also discover the ease with which you can travel up and down stairways using crossovers. Twists are methods of turning a body with the aid of the feet and legs to evade an attack or contribute to the force of your offense. There are two types, in place and traveling twist. The following demonstrations and descriptions should suffice in clarifying both. The in-place twist requires simultaneous body and leg rotation. In the execution of this twist, the body not only turns, but drops in height as well. In analyzing the in-place twist, you will notice that the maneuver from a neutral bow stance triggers an inward action. That is, your body turns toward you while remaining in place. The advantages of using this maneuver either defensively or offensively are great, even as you drop into the twist. Yet, advantages of both defense or offense can also be gained while unwinding from the in-place twist. The torque from such an action can render surprising results. Let us now proceed to learn the in-place twist. 1. From a left neutral bow stance. 2. Begin to turn clockwise with your left and right foot, plus your upper body. 3. Complete your rotation by fully turning counterclockwise so that your left foot is parallel to the front. 50% of your weight is on the ball of the right foot, and your right shoulder is pushed forward and in front of your left shoulder. Special note: reverse your motion from your in-place twist and revert back to a left neutral bow stance. Explosive action created during this move can be converted into a profitable offense. Traveling twists are not very common, but should be added to your storehouse of knowledge. Depending upon how your feet are positioned, you can move from side to side or forward or back, moving diagonally while employing your lead foot. Its primary use is to stalk an opponent, and secondly, to avoid an attack. The traveling twist consists of two varieties, natural and exaggerated. Close examination of the natural version may cause controversy, for it tends to resemble a turn more than a twist. Nevertheless, the difference is so slight that I have categorized it as a twist. The exaggerated version leaves no doubt that it is, in fact, a twist. When applied, the lower half of the body shows obvious contortion compared with the upper body. This obvious contortion is characteristic of a basic twist. Let us now proceed to demonstrate and describe traveling twists. When applying the exaggerated version, the upper body does not face the same direction as that of the lower half. During this maneuver, the lower half of the body faces left, as the upper half faces right. In a normal version, both the lower and upper body face the same direction during the transition. The following should aid you. 1. From a right neutral bow stance. 2. Lift both feet by first using the heel of the feet to pivot with and plant it to your left. Now lift both heels and pivot to your left on the ball of each foot and then plant them. Step 2 could have started off by pivoting on the ball of each foot first, then the heels. Please take note of how the upper body faces the same direction as the lower half of the body. This occurs because the lower half is basically in sync with the upper half. Jumps are methods of having your feet or foot leave the ground to get to or away from an opponent. Although the feet or foot leaves the ground in executing a jump, they, nevertheless, remain at or below the level of your waist or head. There are several types of jumps: hops, leaps, a switching jump, a jump that is made while facing in the same direction, and flying jumps. There are many variations of hops, leaps, and flying jumps. Only the essential jumps will be discussed, described, and demonstrated on this tape. Hops are one-leg jumps that require a minimum of height to execute. They somewhat resemble a pull-drag shuffle, with the exception that the foot does not drag on the ground. It becomes slightly airborne before the foot is planted and the body repositioned. Primary purpose of a hop is to rapidly close the distance between you and your opponent. As the hop is executed, every effort is made to protect the vital areas of the body. 1. From a right neutral bow stance. 2. Pick up your left foot and balance your weight on your right leg. 3. Jump forward with your right foot onto the same foot. And 4. Plant your left foot forward into a left neutral bow stance. The following examples demonstrate the use of a hop. 1. Hop, then sweep the leg of a standing opponent. 2. Hop, then sweep the arm of an opponent who is on his hands and knees. Leaps and explosive jumps are used to evade and attack an opponent. They require vigorous effort in acquiring a fair degree of height. While executing such moves, both feet may simultaneously leave the ground, or you may use one foot at a time. No matter what method is employed, both feet do become airborne during the course of a leap. One-leg leaps require one foot leaving the ground at a time, with both becoming airborne prior to planting the feet or foot. Whatever foot is planted, the weight of the body balances and rests on that leg. This leap is primarily used as an evasive maneuver that positions your body for the next counter. We will now demonstrate. 1. From a left neutral bow stance. 2. Leap forward and to your left on a 45-degree angle. Use your right foot to push off with. 3. Land on your left leg, keeping your left knee flexible and balance your weight on your left leg as you form a left one-leg stance. Examine how the one-leg leap is used when employing the self-defense technique leaping crane. Two-leg leap involves both feet simultaneously leaving as well as being planted on the ground. It is mainly used as an offensive maneuver to give added height to the final move, employing gravitational marriage. Observe the following. 1. From a standing position. 2. Leap forward using both legs to push off with. 3. Land on both legs, keeping your knees flexible so as to enhance your balance. The self-defense technique, leap of death, is an example of the benefits of a two-leg leap. Switching jump. This is a third method used to switch stances. However, instead of using step-throughs to accomplish the switch, a jump is executed to achieve the same results. This method requires jumping in the air, switching your legs, reversing their order in midair, landing on the identical spot while facing in the same direction. Like the other two switching methods, it can be used to better position yourself, minimize your target areas, enhance your attack, as well as a deceptive maneuver, and be of benefit strategically, such as avoiding a low strike using a staff or sword. Please observe the following. 1. From a left neutral bow. 2. Jump up in the air. 3. Switch your legs and body slightly while in the air. 4. Land on an identical spot, facing the same direction, and into a right neutral bow stance. 5. Now from a right neutral bow. 6. Jump in the air. 7. Switch your legs and body slightly while in the air. And 8. Land on the identical spot, facing the same direction, and into a left neutral bow stance. Covering jump is a jumping method instead of a step-through method used to turn and face in the opposite direction. Here again, not seeing what is behind you, nor the type of attack being used, this method affords you the opportunity of turning in midair and facing in the opposite direction while actually retreating from an unknown opponent. Please examine the following. 1. From a right neutral bow. 2. Jump up into the air and begin to turn counterclockwise. 3. Complete the 360-degree turn in midair. 4. Land with both feet into a left neutral bow stance while facing the opposite direction. 5. Now from a left neutral bow. 6. Jump into the air and begin to turn clockwise. 7. Complete the 360-degree turn in midair. And 8. Land with both feet into a right neutral bow stance while facing the opposite direction. Study the effects of a covering jump that adds aggression to the jump. Flying jumps are jumps that are not only airborne, but that travel or sail through the air as well. They can be activated from a dead standstill or from a running start. They too may be used to avoid an attack or aid you in the execution of an attack. When used as a defense, it is called a flying jump. Converted into an offense, it changes from a flying jump, which it starts off as, to a flying kick. There are different types: flying back knuckle strike, etc. Used as an offense, the body becomes almost parallel to the ground at the point of execution. Please study the following. From a standing position. 1. Jump with both legs. 2. Stretch them out as you sail through the air. 3. Recock your legs and plant them into a standing position. From a running position. 1. Jump in the air with both legs. 2. Cock them in midair and turn counterclockwise as you deliver a right knife edge kick. 3. Recock your legs and land on both feet. A word of caution. Please use caution when executing the following methods of diving. Caution can never be overemphasized if you are not a gymnast. Get assistance from someone who is knowledgeable and experienced. Dives are unique methods that use exaggerated moves to avoid an attack, work in conjunction with an attack, or as a defense-offense combination. Because they are unique, dives are categorized separately. Employing elements of a jump, dives are nevertheless unquestionably different. The key difference here exists between height levels of the head and feet. In a dive, the head lunges forward, followed by the feet. At a certain period during a dive, the feet are raised above the level of the head. It is this relationship of height, the feet being higher than the head, that separates a dive from a jump. Another distinguishable difference between a dive and jump involves body parts that make contact with the ground at the time of execution. Executing a jump, you leave the ground with your feet and land on them. When diving, you leave the ground with your feet and land on your hand or hands in the majority of cases, then roll with the parts of your arm, shoulder, back, hip, and leg before landing up on your feet again. There are three main types of dives: head and shoulder, shoulder and back, and head and chest. Other specialized diving methods and their uses will be described in future tapes. The head and shoulder dive involves a straightforward motion, diving head first, tucking the head, then rolling equally on the shoulders, back, hips, buttocks, and back onto your feet. Let us now study the following. From a standing position, 1. Bend your knees and dive head first with hands outstretched to break your fall. Please take note of how the feet are raised above the level of the head. 2. With your hands helping to break your fall, tuck your head, roll on your shoulders, back, hips, and buttocks, and have the momentum carry you forward and back onto your feet. You then have the option to cover if you wish. Shoulder dive involves turning the body on a slight angle so that either the right or left side of the body is used to roll with. If you decide to use the right, you will partially roll with the right arm, shoulder, hip, thigh, and back onto your feet. Again, notice that the level of the feet is higher than the head. From a standing position, 1. Bend your knees, turn and dive to your right with your right arm outstretched to help break the fall. Again, take notice of how the feet ends higher than the level of the head. 2. With your right arm helping to break your fall, tuck your head toward your left shoulder and roll on your right shoulder, hip, thigh, as you roll back onto your feet. Back, head and chest dive. This is a straight dive to the rear. It is not a common dive and therefore requires practice. To execute it, spring back onto your hands, keep your head and back arched, and time your action carefully as you roll on your chest, stomach, hips, thighs, knees, and feet. From a standing position, 1. Bend your knees, squat, and spring backward. Reach out with your arms to break your fall. Arch your head and back, and again bend your knees. As your hands touch the ground, straighten your body, and 2. As your weight begins to shift over the center point, again arch your head and back. Now begin to roll on your chest, stomach, hips, thighs, knees, and feet. Flip is a specialized foot maneuver employed to move the feet from one spot to another. Contained within a flip are elements of a jump, dive, and handspring. It is executed in 3 stages, from the feet to hands and back to feet. The wrists play an important role in executing a flip, since it acts as a springing device that aids you in completing your maneuver. Although it is an acrobatic maneuver, it is useful and can be strategically used as a primary method of escape. It can also aid you offensively or as a defense-offense combination. 2 types of flips will be demonstrated: front and back. The front flip starts off like a head and shoulder dive. lands on the hands, and springs you back onto your feet. Please observe the following. From a standing position, squat down, leap forward with your arms outstretched, and land on your hands. The instant you make ground contact with your hands, use your arms and wrists to flip you over and back to your feet again. The back flip starts off like a back hand and chest dive, lands on the hands, and springs you back onto your feet again. Like the front flip, your feet are above the level of your head. Study the following. From a standing position, squat down, leap backward with your arms stretched out behind you, and land on your hands. The instant you make ground contact with your hands, use your arms and wrists to flip you over and onto your feet again. Spinning is a specialized foot maneuver used to escape from or to attack an opponent. Its distinctive feature is that the feet are in constant contact with the ground. Both the legs and upper body are synchronized with each spin to enhance the momentum and speed of the attack or escape. It is, nevertheless, not a common maneuver for beginning students, but a must for those of higher training. Learn every aspect of motion, whether it is to be used offensively or defensively. Do not overlook one opportunity, especially when studying them in reverse. Spins can be executed while rotating clockwise or counterclockwise, going toward or away from your opponent. It goes without saying that circumstances and your personal skill dictates your choice of action. From a standing position, 1. Bend your knees slightly to aid your balance during the maneuver, and 2. Move counterclockwise as your right foot steps forward and plants to your left while spinning. 3. Continue to spin counterclockwise by moving your left foot in a backward motion as you plant it to the right of your right foot. Further distance can be covered by continuing the same procedure. Twirling. Although this specialized foot maneuver is similar to spinning in appearance, it warrants a descriptive term of its own because it is executed while airborne. It is literally a spin to turn your body clockwise or counterclockwise while in the air, traveling from one ground point to another. Both the upper and lower body are synchronized to twirl simultaneously while moving toward or away from your opponent. It could further be said that a twirl is no more than a turning jump. It too is primarily taught to advanced students. Again, observe and study the following. From a standing position, 1. Bend your knees slightly to aid your balance during the maneuver, and 2. Jump clockwise while turning 360 degrees in the air and landing on both feet. You may continue this action turning clockwise or counterclockwise more than once. Hurdling, another specialized foot maneuver, describes jumping over obstacles to get from one ground point to another. In combat, it may require jumping over a stool, chair, person, etc. as part of your defensive or offensive strategy. The fact that these jumps are encumbered by obstacles makes the maneuver challenging and unique. Hurdling often employs several combination jumps, leaping, flying, and occasionally covering. Only the highly skilled should use this in combat. Beginners should walk or run around the obstacles and use them as a means of defense. Vaulting. This specialized foot maneuver requires a prop such as a staff, table, stanchion, an opponent's body or other like objects to support, launch, and execute a jump from one ground point to another. The fact that props are needed for support in launching the jump makes it special and unique. During the launch, 2 choices are available. 1, only planting the feet, or 2, kicking with the feet before planting them. Again, only the highly skilled should employ this method in combat. Let us review and scrutinize body maneuvers more explicitly. Organizational chart on body maneuvers. Body maneuvers: turning, riding, rolling, slipping, bobbing, weaving, falling. Body maneuvers: turning is a method of rotating the upper body to the left or right while in place or after stepping off and to the side. The turn normally occurs within a 180-degree radius. It too can be used to avoid an attack or to counterattack while simultaneously avoiding an attack. The technique, thrusting salute, is an excellent example in demonstrating the effects of turning to avoid an attack while simultaneously counterattacking. Turning can also be done while on the ground. Riding is a method of having your upper body go with an attack. This could be done while standing in place or while retreating with the foot. Rolling is a method of avoiding attack using a ride and turn combination. A roll extends beyond a 180-degree radius and up to a 360-degree radius. Having the same flexibility as other methods, you can roll with an attack while simultaneously counterattacking. Rolling can be done in place or coordinated with foot maneuvers. Rolling can also be executed on the ground. Slipping is a method of avoiding an attack while going toward your opponent's action. This may be done directly or indirectly. That is, you can slip past and toward your opponent at the very start of an attack or ride the attack first before slipping toward the action. A counter can accompany a slip. The technique Dance of Death demonstrates slipping. Please study the technique by rewinding the tape to your satisfaction. Bobbing is a method of avoiding attack while virtually dropping underneath, often referred to as ducking, or by rising above the action of your opponent. This maneuver aids you in positioning yourself below or above the level of your opponent's attack. Again, a counter could accompany a bob. Weaving is a method of avoiding an attack while horizontally moving the upper body from side to side toward a number of angles. Countering while weaving can also be accomplished. A combination of body maneuvers can add greatly to your combat strategy. For example, let us apply the self-defense technique Dance of Death as we employ a combination of bobbing, weaving, and slipping. As your opponent throws a right punch, commence by bobbing and weaving to your right. As you maneuver under your opponent's right punch, weave and slip to your left, as well as outside of your opponent's right arm, while striking your opponent's groin with a right reverse handsword. Take note of the left hand and how it is used to check your opponent's retaliatory efforts. Follow up with the takedown and completion of the technique. Falling is an exaggerated method of riding an attack. The major difference between the two is that when riding, you constantly remain on your feet. When falling, you end on either your back or stomach. When on the ground from a fall, turning or rolling can be applied and coordinated with your counters. While it is important that you learn the contents of my tapes, do not neglect studying the very basic material. Each tape is an important building block. They provide you with basic disciplines that add to the total structure of my system of American Kenpo. More importantly, they form the basic foundation